Welcome to the second half of the 2017 South African Cross Country Series. We've had 3 rounds so far, including the Toyota 1000 Desert Race. Now it's simply a case of flat out to the finish. All the action is brought to you by Toyota, Ford and Total Exilium in association with the SACCS. The 2017 South African Cross Country Series has seen its midpoint come and go with the running of the Toyota Kalahari Botswana 1000 Desert Race. 3 done, 3 to go, and this is it. Round 4 of the 2017 season. Traditionally, this is where competitors make their moves on the championship, dig in and settle down if they are in the lead, or go balls to the walls in a spectacular assault over the last 3 races. Welcome to the Harrismith 400 and what proved to be the pivotal event in many senses when it comes to the championship and the points hauls. Talking about championship points, here's how things stacked up after the double point scoring desert race. In the production vehicle category, defending champion Leroy Poulter comfortably leads the standings after sharing the spoils with teammate Janelle de Villiers. De Villiers was 37 points adrift after round number 3, but a good result in Harrismith could see him close that gap. Behind them, Johan Horn was the first of the Class T crews, with Gareth Woolridge leading brother Lance by just a single point to round out the top 5. They were followed by Jason Venter, Henny de Klerk, Henk Lateghan, Johan van Staden and Dion Venter completing the top 10. Jannie Visser topped the Class S standings ahead of David Huddy and Richard Leek Jr. Over in the special vehicle category, defending champion Evan Hutchison found himself in unfamiliar territory as Marius Fourie topped the standings. Stefan van Platsen was in 3rd and Kutsia Labuskaghni in 4th. Werner Kennedy was the first of the Class P special machines, running out the top 5. Nick Gosler and John Telford were in 6th and 7th in their Class P vehicles, with John Thompson, Lance Trethui and Naheem Musaji completing the top 10. So that's what the racing landscape looked like before we got to Harrismith. Clearly a lot to play for and a lot of ground to make up in some cases. And so onto the race at hand, the Harrismith 400. Race HQ and DSP was based at the Eram Farmers Complex some 20 kilometers on the Warden side of the Free State town of Harrismith. The DSP was pretty full, but it also had a great vibe with music, food and drink on tap and plenty of interest from the local supporters. In terms of the terrain, Harrismith is set in one of the most beautiful areas in our country, and the Harrismith 400 route certainly made the most of it. Long stretches of fast track over farmland were intermingled with rough, rocky sections and some spectacular bits thrown in through the mountains. A proper mixed bag then, exactly what we'd expect of a national championship route. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of the race, let's take a moment to catch up with some of the key players. Leroy Poulter currently tops the overall production standings and recently competed in the Baja Aragon in Spain. So he had every reason to be optimistic, though having teammate Janelle de Villiers pip him to the post in Botswana certainly gave the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA driver something to think about.
You know, we've just come back from an international race in Spain, which really went well. So we worked on the car, had some bits and pieces to try there, and we brought it back, and let's see what we can do here this weekend.
As for de Villiers, he wasn't about to give Poulter an easy ride, teammates or not.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously it's going to be a big fight between Leroy and myself, but it was very exciting in Botswana, and let's hope we can do the same here again.
These 2 crews comfortably lead not only the overall standings, but also the Class FIA standings. That class, however, has been limited to 4 cars at best this year, but Harrismith saw the addition of a new entry driven by Century Racing's Mark Corbett and Rodney Burke. Here's Century's Julian Hardy to tell us about the new car.
So this is our latest model with the aim to go to Dakar again end of the year, so January 18. We started design work as we came back from the previous Dakar, so March 16 we started the first sketches and deciding what to change and what to keep. It's a big evolution of the CR5. We've kept the drivetrain, engine, gearbox and all that. And even the suspension is fairly similar with just improvements for reliability and maintenance.
Over in the Class T of the SACCS, it was the name of Johan Horn that topped the standings after 3 rounds. The Malalan Toyota driver was realistic about his chances to hang on to his position.
No, we had a decent season so far. Look, we're only halfway through the season. Still 3 races to go. No motorsport, anything can happen.
The Malalan crew was sure to face massive pressure from the Ford NWM Puma Lubricants crews of Lance and Gareth Woolridge.
It's the time of the season where we've got to throw everything at it. So yeah, I know myself and Gareth, we're both going flat out. We need a win. That's the bottom line, so we're going flat out.
My plan is to try and get as many points as possible. Obviously that entails trying to win, but we're not going to be stupid about it either. But we've got quite a deficit to the Horns after Botswana.
But at the same time, the brothers were only separated by a single point in the standings, so sibling rivalry was definitely on the cards.
I don't know, it's a difficult question. I think we've each got our different strengths. He's definitely the more aggressive one, but I think I don't know, what do you think?
I think it's dependent on the race. We both vary at different venues.
Further back, defending Class T champion Jason Fenter had a mountain to climb at Harrismith, not to mention the rest of the season.
We're still defending champions, but if we still want a chance at winning the championship, we're going to have to win all 3 races this year. And I think it's going to be quite hard, but we're going to try our best.
Over in Class S, championship leader Jannie Visser was upbeat about his season and confident going into round 4.
Ja, nee, ek moet hom kom ry. Ons wou nie kom ry nie, maar ons is nou voor in die kampioenskap. Het baie goed gegaan in Botswana. So daar's niks fout met die bakkie nie, te besluit ons kom ry maar.
Over in the special vehicle paddock, defending champion Evan Hutchison found himself trailing in the standings, but not by much. Just enough though that he knew he needed to push in Harrismith.
We've still got 3 races to go. We're still confident within the championship, but we're just going to have to keep our head as we normally do and try and leave you with some good points.
The man at the top of the standings, however, was Marius Fourie, and he knew exactly what his task was at the Harrismith 400.
Ek gaan maar net probeer in die kar bly gee om nie foute te maak nie. Ek wil nie papwiele nie, so ons maar net probeer bly waar ons is.
The special vehicle field also welcomed a new face at round number 4 in the form of former rally driver Visser Du Plessis, who stepped into the King Price Extreme Porter of Schalk Burger. Burger, who was injured in a crash during the desert race, is still on the mend and gave Du Plessis the opportunity to race the car with navigator Alvin Kutsia in the hot seats.
Evan took me around Gerotech on a rally pace, and for the first time in my life, except with Enzo before I raced, I actually got scared. Schalk wanted me to drive the car after that, and I refused. I said it's okay, and he said I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. And I think after 100 meters, it's like a switch in your head.
And talking to new faces, the Harrismith 400 was also the setting for celebrity navigator Brent Lindeque to make his debut beside Redline Motorsports' Terence Marsh. The good news guy was very excited about the prospect, but that was before the race got underway.
So I'm quite nervous to get into the hot seats. I'm quite nervous for the race to start, but more so, I'm excited. I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that I've been given in a ticket that I don't think money can buy, and I'm just excited to welcome this opportunity and to be here.
So those are just some of the biggest players that took part in the Harrismith 400. Ahead of them was 400 kilometers of flat-out racing across one of the most spectacular landscapes you can imagine. First up, however, was a short qualifying race of just 40 kilometers to determine the starting positions for the main event. Join us after the break then, and we'll tell you all about it. Welcome back to Harrismith and round 4 of the 2017 SACCS. This year's championship has given us everything. freezing cold and rainy weather in Dundee, dry and twisty tracks in Lichtenberg, and 1,000 kilometers of sand in Botswana. If anything, Harrismith was leaning towards the twisty and dusty side. And on Friday, the 28th of July, it was go time. First up was the 40-kilometer qualifying race to determine the starting positions for the main event. At precisely 2 o'clock, the clocks counted down, the flags dropped, and we were racing. It was always going to be a tough session for Corbett and Burke in their brand new CR6. The Class FIA buggy showed moments of brilliance, but since it's hardly turned a wheel before the event, this really was a test session. And a testing one at that, as the pair had to be helped out of the stage despite a strong start. But let's start rather at the more positive side of proceedings. It was business as usual for Toyota Gazoo Racing SA's Leroy Poulter and Rob Howie. The Toyota Hilux crew claimed their 4th pole position of the season, beating teammates Chanel de Villiers and Dennis Murphy by 1 minute and 8 seconds.
Something like the rally cars that we were used to, the type of stage that we did before, and really suited us nicely. Rob did a great job on the notes.
Poulter and de Villiers compete in Class FIA for top spec vehicles that conform to the FIA's rules. Next fastest in this class was the Renault Duster driver Johan van Staden, with veteran navigator Jean Moore beside him. They were followed by celebrity navigator Brent Lindekoe, who had an excellent first run in the Redline Motorsport Nissan Navara with Terence Marsh on the wheel. They set the 13th fastest time in the production vehicle category, and Marsh was full of praise for his Navi.
That was pretty good. Brent got in the book quite early. He went out of it once or twice, but generally over the 45 kilometers and on debut was really good.
As for Lindekoe himself, the good news guy had nothing but a great time, and he was all set to tackle the main race on the Saturday.
The time went off and the guy's flag went down and off we went, and it was probably one of the best things that I've done in my whole entire life.
But those were just the lads in Class FIA. In many ways, the bulk of the production vehicle action can be found in Class T. Well, fastest here was Gareth Woolridge and navigator Boyd Dreyer in their Ford NWM Puma Lubricants Ranger. The pair set the fastest time, pipping teammates Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable by just 8 seconds, despite an eventful qualifier.
Yeah, we were going well. We were setting a good pace, felt happy with the car. We did a lot of suspension work between the desert race and now, and I think it made a big difference. The car was a lot more stable and easier to drive.
The two Fords were followed by former Ford racer Chris Visser behind the wheel of his Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux. Visser was paired with navigator Philip Herselman for this event, and the pair showed their intent early on. The third Ford NWM Puma Lubricants Ranger in the hands of former rally ace Henk Ladergan and navigator Barry White was next fastest, with defending champions Jason Fenter and Vince van Alleman in the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux rounding out the top 5. Class S saw Jannie Visser and son Chris continue their great form and taking the class pole position as a result. They were 30 seconds quicker over the qualifier than Richard Leake and Henry Cohn in their Ford Ranger. Archie Rutherford and son Kent went third fastest, with Dave Huddy and Gerard Skitter the last of the Class S crews. With the qualifying race done and dusted, the production vehicles started to look like this. Poulter and Howie led the way with teammates de Villiers and Murphy behind them. Next up was Woolridge and Dreyer, Woolridge and Huxtable right on their tails. Visser and Herselman completed the top 5. Ladergan and White in 6 were just 2 seconds behind them, whilst the two 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux machines of Jason Fenter and Father Dion were next fastest. The Horn brothers failed to set the pace as they had hoped, and Redline Motorsports' Luke Buerter and Andre Vermeulen rounded out the top 10. Over in the special vehicle side of things, it was Evan Hutchison and navigator Donnie Stassen who did exactly what they set out to do: clinch pole position and set themselves up for a stonking race in their King Price Extreme Bat.
Yeah, we had to try hard. We got a lot of competition at the moment. We needed to push. I wanted to put a good time trial in.
This was the opposite of teammate Visser Duplessis and navigator Alvin Kutsia, who retired their Porter near the end of the qualifier, rather than risk blowing the engine that had been showing signs of overheating. Hutchinson put nearly 1 minute 40 of clear air between him and Van Pletsen, partnered by Jaco Pieterse in the Live Lesotho Chenoweth. They were second fastest, but had a buffer of only 7 seconds over the imposing striker of Nahim Musaji and Ryan Budanya in third. Fourth fastest was Kutsia and daughter Sandra Labiskakny in the 4x4 Mega World Porter, who were just 4 seconds behind the striker ahead of them, but also well clear of the bat of Keith McInerney and Ferdy Pieterse in fifth. McInerney only just beat the Class P Live Lesotho ace-co of Werner Kennedy and Tina Sventer, who in turn led John Telford and Victor Nsheki over the line. Nick Gosler was third quickest in the Class P behind the wheel of his Zarco Magnum. So, confirmation then of Hutchinson and Starsson's victory in the qualifier, with Van Pletsen and Pieterse in second. Musaji and Budanya in third, the Labiskaknys in fourth, and McInerney with Ferdy Pieterse beside him in fifth. Further back, Kennedy and Fenter were in sixth overall, but the first runner in Class P. Telford and Nsheki pegged 7th place and second in Class P, and Gosler and Massey were in 8th. Free and Pienaar, as well as Thompson and Zamatin, rounded out the top 10. With some really tight gaps in places, it was clear that the main race of the Harrismith 400 was shaping up to be quite something. So join us after the break as we take a look at what happened on Saturday of the fateful weekend. Sunoco Speed, South Africa's high-octane motorsport show.
Do you love superbikes? Are you a speed freak? Join us on Sunoco Speed for all the racing action from Pakisa in this year's Rapid Bike 8-hour. The fun endurance race by Moto Rider Academy. Only on Ignition DSTV channel 189.
This is it, the main race of the Harrismith 400. Race day dawned bright and clear, though bitterly cold under the pale blue sky. Not the most welcoming conditions for the fans, but for cross-country racing, perfect. Let's see how things panned out on the special vehicle category first, and then take a look at the production vehicles. The chase for the championship points was certainly on when the flag dropped for the start of the Harrismith 400. Remember, Maurice Fourie was at the top of the pops after the desert race and had everything to lose if he didn't perform well in the Free State. As it turned out though, Fourie's charge for points turned into disappointment as he finished in 4th place, missing out on a podium position by 3 minutes. Both Keith McInerney and Ferdy Pieterse, as well as John Thompson and Marisa Matten, had races that won't stand out in their respective careers. With that said though, both crews reached the finish line of the Harrismith 400, which is more than can be said of many other crews. At the sharp end of the Class A field, it was the father and daughter pairing of Kutsia and Sandra Labiskakny that drove the 4x4 Mega World Porter with determination that paid dividends. The pair went 3rd fastest on the day, scoring valuable points yet again. Ahead of them, however, it was Stefan Van Pletsen and Jaco Pieterse in the Live Lesotho Chenoweth who recorded another 2nd place finish. The pair won the opening round of the year and have shown great form of late. They had every reason to be proud of their achievements on the Harrismith 400. This means then that the lion's share of points in the special vehicle category went to Evan Hutchinson and Donnie Stassen in their King Price Extreme Bat. The popular crew has had an up and down season with 3 podiums and a DNF so far, but victory in the Free State, despite massive engine problems near the end of the race, handed the lead of the championship back to the boys in red. And for once, Evan Hutchinson seemed pleased.
Yeah, it was a lekker day. It was a tough day. You know, we had some engine problems in the first lap, and when we got them, I didn't think we were going to be able to finish the race. So to be sitting here with a win, we're quite happy. Yeah.
But the Class A frames aren't the only show in town. As a matter of fact, the battle in Class P is just as tight, and the man with the most to lose going into this round was Nick Gosler. The bearded warrior, paired with Andrew Massey in the Zarco Magnum, had a great result on the desert race, but the chips fell the other way in Harrismith. Gosler and Massey went 5th fastest on the day and had to watch their championship lead shrink away. They were pipped on the day by only 2 minutes, by Werner Kennedy and Tinus Venter in the Live Lesotho Ace Co. This result sees Kennedy overtake Goslar in the standings, but then again only 1 point separated them before the start of this event. And the top step of the podium? This again went to John Telford and Victor Nsheki in their Hellcat, who bounced back from a DNF on the final day of the desert. Maximum points sees them leapfrog the competition straight to the top of the table, and Telford was ecstatic with the result.
So it's going to be all out for the next two events. It's going to be tight for the end, yeah.
So here's how things stacked up when the dust settled over the special vehicle race in the Harrismith 400. Hutchison and Starson took the win despite their engine scare. Van Pletzen and Pieterse, they took second, with the Labuskaknis in third. Fourie and Pienaar was next fastest, while Telford and Nsheki not only rounded out the top 5 overall, but also took the honours as the first Class P car home. McAnety and Pieterse were in 6th, Thompson and Zermatt in 7th, Kennedy and Venter in 8th. Goslar and Massey were the last runners on the day. From the special vehicle race to the production category we go, and in Harrismith, the race was always going to be a tight one. So let's start with Class S, where only 2 cars finished the event, testimony to the tough conditions. David Huddy and Gerard Skidder brought their Nissan Navara home in a time of 5 hours, 54 minutes and 58 seconds, just 3 minutes 47 behind class winners Jannie Visser and son Chris Visser Jr. The latter crew have proven to be all but unbeatable this season and showed their class yet again by claiming maximum points in Harrismith. Ahead of the Class S crews came the mean machines of Class T. This is a tough world where simply making it to the finish can be quite an achievement. One that Wayne and Paula Plitt in the OEM Lubricants Motul BMW X3 finally cracked in the Free State. They were the 13th and final production vehicle home on the day, but they were home nonetheless. Ahead of them came Jacques Van Tonder and Leander Pienaar in their Ford Ranger, with the Ford NWM Puma Lubricants Ranger of Henk Lautergan and Barry White 6.5 minutes faster. Lautergan and White, however, were disappointed to manage only the 6th fastest time in Harrismith. In fairness, though, the Ford duo had huge issues on the first loop and then lost even more time in service. All told, they lost 21 minutes to penalties and about 3 minutes to brake problems. They fought back hard, though, and went second quickest on Loop 2 and managed to salvage something from the race in the end. Redline Motorsports' Luke Buerta and Andre Vermeulen drove a steady race in their Nissan Navara to take 5th in Class T, finishing just 6 minutes behind the Malalan Toyota Hilux of Johan and Werner Horn. Buerta has proven himself as a reliable driver, scoring multiple podiums during 2016. He sadly missed this year's desert race, but was clearly back in form. For the Horn brothers, this result meant losing their lead in the championship, which was certainly bad news for driver Johan.
Tough weekend for us. We had brake issues on prologue, and today, the second loop, halfway through the second loop, we had no brakes. So yeah, it was a tough weekend.
Spare a thought for the 4x4 Mega World Toyota Hilux crews at Harrismith, though. Both Jason Venter and Father Dion had a tough time in the Free State. Things went wrong for defending champion Jason Venter and navigator Vince van Alleman when their gearbox gave up the ghost. And Father Dion Venter, along with navigator Jaco van Aert, rolled their version of the same Hilux not once, but twice. All in all, a weekend to forget for the Klerksdorp-based team. And so on to the Class T podium positions. Third place in the Harrismith 400 went to Atlas Copco's Chris Visser and stand-in navigator Philip Hurselman. The pair were the sole remaining Atlas Copco entry after the sad loss of Gary Berthold's Volkswagen Amarok in the desert race, and Henny de Klerk damaging his version of the same vehicle during practice just 1 week prior to the race. But Visser and Hurselman flew the Atlas Copco flag well by taking the fight to the 2 Ford Rangers ahead of them. So in the end, it came down to the Woolridge brothers in their 2 Ford NWM Puma Lubricants Rangers. Before the race, they both declared their intentions to go for maximum points, so it came as no surprise that they ended on the podium. Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable, however, had to settle for the second step, as Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer took the Class T victory. This sets them up nicely for the championship, though there's still a lot of life left in this season.
Yeah, we got a bit of a scare on the second lap. the team and engineer told us we had lost 30 seconds, which would have been our total lead. So we pushed like hell on the second half of the second lap, and we managed to open up a couple of minutes, which was good, and then came away with the win.
If the Class T crews live in an adrenaline-fueled world of high-octane racing, we don't want to define the planet on which the crews in the Class FIA find themselves. These machines are the pinnacle in global cross-country racing, and in Harrismith, 5 Class FIA cars took to the starters' orders. Things could have gone somewhat better for Mark Corbett and Rodney Burke in their brand new Century CR6 buggy, but then the car's paint wasn't even dry yet, and the Harrismith 400 was nothing more than an extended test session. They didn't make it to the finish line. But they weren't the only ones who had trouble. Championship leaders Leroy Poulter and Rob Howie have had more wins over the last 2 seasons than some crews have had finishes. The pair won the Harrismith Prologue and quickly set about demolishing all comers as usual. Their pace was simply electric. Let's join them in car for half a minute as navigator Rob Howie guides Poulter through some tricky terrain.
A little bit twisty, ditch in the corner and going left.
But it didn't last, unfortunately. Shortly after starting the second loop, the gearbox in their Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Hilux cried no more, and they retired from P1. This meant that teammates Chanel de Villiers and Dennis Murphy in an identical Toyota Hilux moved up into first place. The former Dakar champion won the desert race in June and was in good form coming into Harrismith. Together with navigator Dennis Murphy, they were certainly keeping their teammates honest, and when Poulter and Howie retired, de Villiers and Murphy filled the gap without missing a beat. In the end, they took the overall honours and made it look pretty easy.
You know, all in all, a great race. Team did a great job, and Dennis did a great job. So all in all, very happy.
Behind them, Johan van Staden and Juan Moore scored their first podium in their Class FIA Renault Duster. The locally built and developed car was clearly coming of age, though de Villiers finished 31 minutes ahead of them in the end. Even so, van Staden and Moore were happy to spray the bubbly from the second step of the podium. This left third place, which went to Redline Motorsports' Terence Marsh and celebrity navigator Brent Lindeque. Their performance in the Class FIA Nissan Navara cannot be overstated, and both driver and navigator were ecstatic with the result. For Lindeque, though, the Harrismith 400 was an event that he will never forget.
I'm battling to put into the words because I feel euphoric. It was literally one of the best days of my life.
After 400 kilometers of racing through the Free State, this is how the times tallied up for the production vehicles. De Villiers and Murphy brought their Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Hilux home in first place, with the 2 Ford NWM Puma lubricant Rangers of first Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer, and then Lance Woolridge and Ward Huxtable in behind them. Chris Visser and Phil Herselman were 4th fastest in their Atlas Copco Toyota Hilux, and Johan and Werner Horn rounded out the top 5 in their Malalan Toyota Hilux. Redline Motorsports' Luke Burton and Andre Vermeulen claimed 6th place overall, with Johan van Staden and Jan Moore 7th in the Alf Renault Duster. Henk Ladegan and Barry White salvaged the finish from the Harrismith 400, while Jacques Van Tonder and Leander Pienaar brought their Ford Ranger home in 9th overall. For Marsh and Lindeque in the Class FIA Nissan Navara, they completed the top 10. This wraps up our coverage of the Harrismith 400, round 4 of the 2017 SACCS. Next up is the Sun City 400, which takes place mid-September. It'll be a bit of a break before we get there, but for the crews fighting it out for the championships, the race can't come soon enough. We'll see you there at Sun City. All the spectacular dry and dusty action from the 2017 Harrismith 400 was brought to you by Toyota, Ford and Total Exilium.